So, as you know, I wrote a book series called The Alien Annihilators, and it has 7 books in it. And after I finished the 7th book, I started to think about what then what the next book was going to be about. It was going to be like separate from the series and have new characters and a new concept. And I was just really thinking about what to make it about, and I kind of realized that because because I a lot of the a lot of the movies I like have like superpowers in it, like Spider-Man, for example, and like the Marvel universe movies. So I kind of realized that it was time for me to enter like this market of superhero stories. And so what this is about is that this guy named Keith, he mutates. He gets So what happens is that this rare insect is dissected. This rare insect is dissected by Keith, and what happens is that the powers in the insect are transferred to Keith. And what this does is that it gives him the power to transform his hands into bark. So like tree bark. And what this does is that it makes him really strong, because like he can fight all these bad guys with tree tree trunks for hands. And so this makes him really strong. And what also happens is that he can shoot vines. He can shoot vines out of his hands, so he kind of becomes like Spider-Man, but just a little bit different. So when they find out that this super villain, Lord Inferno, when they find out that his servants want to awaken him from this deep slumber he's fallen in, the 5 friends go on a quest to retrieve some objects. And what these objects are like, they're objects that grant superpowers. So what happens is that they want to all create superpowers for themselves, so they can fight the people that are trying to awaken Lord Inferno from his slumber. So I wanted to talk about the major relationship conflict in this story. So I wanted to make the relationship conflict like kind of different from the Alien Annihilators, and because of this I decided to make so the girl that Keith likes is named Carly, and she's been straight for most of her life, but in 10th grade she started to realize that she liked girls, and then 2 years 2 years later, she falls in love with her best friend named Renee. And so like they start college with Carly and Renee together, and Keith still kind of pining for her and like hoping that something happens between them, even though Carly and Renee are in this relationship. So I want to talk about Zach. Zach's like the best friend of Keith, and Zach is like this goofy guy who's creating a lot of the humor in the book, and like I think the relationship between Keith and Zach is really interesting, because like when Keith realizes he develops these powers, he sees it as something that he needs to hide, because he doesn't want to freak anyone out, and he just wants to live an ordinary life. He doesn't want to use these powers for anything, but it's Zach that really thinks that Keith should just drop what he's doing, drop university and everything, and just fight crime. And so I think this type of relationship is really important to the story, because it's exploring these two perspectives, one in favor of fighting crime and one who's like completely against it. And I think this relationship was really important for the plot. So I wanted to talk about Zach and Renee's relationship. So as you may know, in the Alien Annihilators, Kenneth and Rachel were like these two characters who kind of didn't really like each other, and were like making jokes, making fun of each other. And Zach and Renee are similar to this. So one good example of this is that they're talking about the four friends, Keith, Zach, Carly, and Renee. They're talking about superpowers, and they're talking about how like mutations in your DNA can give you superpowers. And Zach's talking about how he wants to be like half werewolf, and like he wants to like live in the mountains and feed on deer and antelope. And Renee's like, Renee's kind of disgusted by how he'd want to live like this, just preying on other animals and just eating raw meat and stuff. So I think I think the type of relationship that they have creates a lot of the humor in the book. So I wanted to talk more about the fifth character in the book. Her name's Jennifer, and like she has like this crush on Keith, but Keith's not interested in her because he's still pining over Carly, and Jennifer thinks that Keith is kind of ridiculous because Carly doesn't even like boys anymore, and she's in a relationship, and Jennifer is just really annoyed that Keith would rather keep pining over this girl rather than be in a relationship with her. I think there's like a really funny part of the book where like Keith goes to a restaurant and he sees Jennifer there, and Jennifer kind of insists that Keith sits with her, so he does, and then what happens later is that Carly and Renee go to that same restaurant, and they start like this double date, and so like Carly asked Jennifer how long they've been dating, and then Keith kind of butts into the conversation and says that they're not dating, and then Jennifer kind of says aside to Carly, "Not yet," and then kind of winks. So I think this shows the type of relationship that Keith and Jennifer have. So Keith's just this guy who's not interested in a relationship with Jennifer, and Jennifer's like kind of this persistent girl who isn't really taking no for an answer. So I think the relationships in this story add a lot to the plot.